Hello everyone, I am Flare, or better known as Luos, and today I want to try and explain a little bit about UVs. I mean, everybody uses them, but apparently there are not many people who actually understand what UVs are. So sometimes you hear things like the 0 to 1 space and that kind of stuff, but I'm just gonna show you. Anyways, this is a texture coordinate node. As you can see without preview, the regular texture coordinate node. If you preview it, you can see a green, red, and yellow thing. So basically when you hear 0 to 1 space, it kind of means that 0 to 1, 0 to 1. So that's the whole span. And that's basically the only thing you kind of need to know about 0 to 1 space. If there's 0 to 2 space, then it can mean that either horizontally or vertically it's extended one more. But you almost never hear that kind of thing. Anyways, if you have a texture, then the texture is also from 0 to 1 and 0 to 1. And if you preview it, like here, you can just see the regular texture. Now, if you use the texture coordinate node to influence the UVs, you can tile it once more. And the same with the V tiling. And now, what exactly is happening? Let me try and explain to you. So, the texture coordinate node is nothing more than two gradients, one aligned horizontally, one aligned vertically, to generate some math for coordinates. So if you look at the first channel of the texture coordinate node, you see a black white gradient. Now if you look at the second channel of the UV, you can see a vertical gradient. Now and if you append those two, you get the whole green red thing again, just same as in the texture coordinate node. Alright, now that's something. Now if you have two texture samples, an horizontally and vertically aligned gradient, and you append them, you get the same effect here. So as you can see, the texture coordinate node is nothing more than two gradients. So let's take this a step further. What's actually happening on a model in that case? So I took this simple epic character thing, and let's use that as a good example. So I'm gonna find that in the content browser. I'm gonna apply it here in the preview. As you can see, there's all kinds of greens, yellows, reds, oranges, and that kind of stuff. And I already set something up here. Now, this is the regular texture sample applied to the model. There we go. And the texture coordinate node is all kinds of information. But what's actually happening? Well, let me try and show you in this blurb. It's just applying the information, the X and Y coordination of the textures, onto the XY coordination of each pixel or vertice of that whole mesh, skeletal mesh in this case. And as you can see, there's a lot of different colors: red, orange, green. So what's actually happening on the first channel of the UVs, the U channel? There's kind of a little bit of a gray in the face, which kind of means that it's probably a little bit around here, looking at the color, that coordination. And on the V channel, it's also quite gray whitish, so that's probably around here as well. Now we can check that if we multiply both of these gradients, and you get almost the same color. Now let's do this on a plane again. As you can see here, this is almost the color of that face. I'm looking at it from both the V channel and the U channel. You can see here. And that coordination information is then passed on, and you'll get this result. There. And that's all that regular UVs is. Now, this might not be the best explanation. I haven't done tutorials for a bit, and but I think it gets the point across. If not, always ask, and I'll try to iterate on what I said. Now, back to the regular texture coordinate stuff, because I'm not here for the whole modeling kind of thing, but more for effects and that kind of stuff. So, back to the texture coordinate node: red, green gradients. Now, what is an append? Let's start there. An append actually adds another channel to something. So I'm only using the red channel and I'm appending it into the A. And I'm using another texture and put that red channel into the B, which means that it's basically now putting two channels together, the R and the G, or A and B in this case. So when you combine those, you get this gradient in channel 1 or channel red, and this in the second channel, channel blue, and you can combine them again. Now, what happens if I plug this into a texture sample? As you can see, there won't be any difference between the texture coordinate node and the two gradient textures, as you can see. Let me put this back to a scale of 1. There. And what happens if you multiply it? Now, actually, let me preview the multiply. As you can see, it's all black on the side and white here, so the offset will be a bit weird, but there's still a result. It will be quite odd and stretchy, but there is a result. But to explain this a bit better, what happens if I get the same texture twice in a row? So I just duplicated it, made sure that it fits in the texture again, and pen it. And now you have the same texture 2 times. Actually 4 times. 1, 2, 3, 4. So how to get that result with the texture coordinate node? Plug it in, and you set the U tiling to 2, 2. So what's actually happening is that it just tiles the gradients on horizontal and vertically once additional time, which results in the texture scaling. Now, you can do a lot of cool things with that. So what happens if you have something that's a little bit different than a regular gradient? I flipped about half the gradient, as you can see here. Now that result will look like this. I actually mirrored this part of the texture because I mirrored this part of the gradient. I have another example here, which is basically mirroring the texture halfway through. It's going from black to white and white to black. And that result will be this. How the whole texture is flipped, mirrored actually. Have it through. And you can do some fun things with that. But yeah, I think that's generally the most things you can say about UMVs. But what's really important is, in my own opinion, Euphy distortion. It's something I use a lot, and a lot of people keep asking me, how do you do the distortion? And it's quite simple. I'm going to make a simple example out of that. Now, I have the gradient here that I used in the previous examples, and I rendered out a noise texture. I'm going to just multiply that, and I'm going to save this as a horizontal and as a vertical texture. So give me a second. So I just imported those two noisy gradient effects. Let me place them in here. All right. Let's go all the way to the top with one of the first examples, and let me take that texture sample with us. All right. I'm gonna append those two noises. Guess what the result will be. There you go. Because the UVs are very distorted, the final result of the texture will also be quite distorted. Now, if you for funsies add a panner to that kind of effect, and a panner is nothing more than actually constantly panning the gradient texture. I can show you in a second. So if I add a small value to the horizontal speed, 0.2 probably not is more than enough. And let me also plug it into this one. There's some movement going on there, obviously, because it's a panner. If you preview a panner, the values will be very odd. So how to actually properly show you that? It should be enough to just show you on the mask R. And clamping it. It's going from 0 to 1 to infinite. So that's the whole thing. To show you a bit better, let me just plug the panner into the clamp and preview that. This should work. Oh, there. Let me make it a little bit more clear for you. There. This is nothing more than what a panner does. Pans gradients non-stop. A rotator rotates it. but it rotates both the U and the V at the same time. Okay, so how can we do something more interesting with that? I clean up a little bit. I assume that you by now understand that UVs are nothing more than horizontal and vertical gradients, so I'm gonna move this out of the way a little bit and get a texture coordinate node here. And move that away. I'm actually gonna lerp linear interpolate between a regular texture coordinate and this distorted one and plug it back into this texture sample. We're gonna preview again. Now, since it's about 50-50 on what's going on, let me add a scalar value into the alpha. This is the regular texture coordinate node, as you can see here. The B1 is this distorted mess, as you can see here. Now, if you want to have only a little bit of that effect, here we go. You can see that there's some UV distortion going on, but it's just a little bit, and that gives that nice wavy effect. Let's see. Let me disable channel that's not needed, and you get a nice wavy effect. And I really always dig those kind of effects. Now, if I also change the Y speed to 0.2 and plug that into the UV again, you can see some distortion. That's going because I'm panning both on an angle that shouldn't be needed. So let's give the bottom one the value of 0.2 and 0, and let's get the invert that value there and plug that into that UV channel. Now you have distortion going horizontal and vertically, as you can see. And the amount of distortion really depends on how much you lerp between the noise and the regular UV channels, as you can see. Okay, so that's basically UV distortion, as I call it. Now you can do quite a lot of cool things with it. Let's say you have a very weird effect here. This is just a gradient, a vertical one that I spiraled and that kind of stuff. And I also have an alpha channel to hide the parts that I don't need, as you can see here. So I'm just going to use the red channel of this, and let's plug that into the red channel here. Now what happens, as you can see, it is showing the texture, but poorly. So since there's an alpha texture, I'm going to multiply this output with the alpha texture, and I'm going to preview it again. As you can see, now there's only the texture is visible where I want it to, but as you can see, it's very stretched. So what do I need to do now? Well, I'm only using one channel, the red channel, and UVs need two channels, a U channel, a V channel, or an R and a B channel, or whatever. So I'm going to get another texture coordinate node, and I'm going to mask the red channel, I think. And I'm going to append those so that there are two channels again, a U and a V channel. Plug in the U, plug in the V. I might need to flip them, but there you go. Now let's turn it around. I think it might need to be the other way around. I keep forgetting. There we go. So the regular texture with all the gradients is going into the A or in the U, and we still need a V channel, so I'm plugging that into the append and make it this a UV channel again. If you preview this, you can see it has the red, green, the yellows, the regular things you expect from a UV channel. So that results in this effect. Now you're like, okay, what can you do with it? Now let's add a simple panner effect to that. And plug that in here and change the vertical speed to minus 0.25. That should be enough. And as you can see now, the texture is actually tiling along all the gradients, whirly, swirly, whirly blur, whatever they call it. And now you can get get this kind of result, which is quite interesting. You can obviously still change the second channel, as you can see here, or you can make them very elongated. Just make it a little bit, as you can see here. So you can do all kinds of very cool effects with that. Combine that with the distortion we made before. So this append is the UV channel. Let me delete this part, clean it up a little bit, move the texture sample all the way over here, and get that distortion going that I made before. I'm not sure if I still want to keep everything from this, but let's plug that append to the old texture coordinate information and plug it in here. And as you can see, there is some distortion going on. Now we can make this a lot heavier, of course, 0.4. And all kinds of weird effects are happening now. Now, this is nice and all, but there are other ways you can do this. And I like to actually distort UVs even more. Now, put this in here. I'm actually gonna plug that into the penner information. And the texture keep going. There. As you can see, there's all kinds of weird distortion that you can get out of this. And that's just so much fun to play with. I think that explains quite a lot about the UV distortion, and I think this is a good first go. I might explain it again in a later date with a bit more information and a bit more detail, a bit more thorough, and maybe a bit more research before, or not research, just playing out everything a bit better. But for now, I think this is a good get-go to start a little bit more about UV channels and what you can do with them. Alright, I think that's it. Hope you learned something, and take care. Luos out.